I'm here with Murray Bartlett from Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed, Apple TV show. First off, this show is just frenetic. It's full of twists and turns. How did you get into this project?
I met with David Rosen, the creator, and David Gordon Green, who was the first director on the show and sort of set the tone of what the show is. And I loved them. They're great guys. They're very smart. They were super excited about this show, and then they told me about the show, which is such a compelling, kind of interesting story. I think and is very relatable because it's about a person being overwhelmed by all the things that are going on in their lives, and then just um, in that state, sort of becoming obsessed with something, and uh, and then sort of finding themselves in this really kind of intense situation and having to find their way through it. And I guess I just feel like that's something we can all relate to. We live in very intense times. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed, and watching someone navigate through really difficult circumstances and trying to find their way through to the other side is kind of cathartic. And the way that this story is told, it's funny, it's dark, it's all these things that I love in a story. So, and then the role that I get to play is so richly written and something different to what I've played before, I think. So it was an easy sell for me. I was like, yeah, sign me up.
So yeah, speaking of that, so without spoiling too much, you kind of play a villain role. Like, what was it like taking on such a sinister role?
I think as an actor, you're always trying to find out how do I not play this like a villain, or a hero, or what? You're trying to find all the dimensions in a character. And fortunately, when there's good writing, where there is in this show, a lot of that is on the page, and you get to see so many different sides of this character. He's kind of a chameleon, and it's really beautifully written, but also like a kind of a gift for an actor, where the guy that I play, he just sort of adapts to every situation he's in different ways to get what he wants in that particular situation. And so I get to play all these sort of different sides of him, being coercive or charming, or like all the things. Like, it's a full kind of gamut. So it was, it was exciting trying to get under the skin of someone, who doesn't really have empathy, which is something that I feel like I may have an excess of empathy. I'm like a sponge. I kind of absorb whatever's around me. And so it was a good challenge for me to play someone that's sort of in many ways like the opposite of me.
Yeah, and one scene in particular, my wife and I were watching, and you get a call from police. You just start bawling, and obviously not trying to give away too much, but then you just come out of it, right? And you go into a completely different mode. Like, did
Right.
you see that scene and were you like, this is great, or like, how do I pull this off?
I think it's both. I think it was Judy Dench, probably many other people, but like Judy Dench said this thing once where she's like, you get a role and you're ecstatic, and then 5 minutes later you're like, oh my God, I got the role. I've got to do the role now. And it can feel like a mountain. And it was similar with that. It's an extraordinary scene for an actor because I'm doing two things at once. Without giving too much away, I'm like following through on this kind of mission, but then a phone call comes in, and it's sort of something very sort of contrasting with what I'm doing, and you have to do both things at the same time, and it's really cool, like a really cool challenge. But yeah, there's also that thing of like, oh God, how am I going to do that? And how am I going to not mess that up? And how am I going to make it as great as it reads on the page? But that's the sort of excitement of being an actor, really. You get those things, and you get to solve the puzzle.
Yeah. The other, big lead in this is Tatiana Maslany. Can you just talk
Yeah.
about like what it was like to work with her in this role?
Yeah, I mean, we don't get a ton of time on screen together, and when when we do, it's kind of violent. But she is one of the most wonderful humans you would ever meet. So having someone like that, and is incredibly talented. So having someone like that as the pillar of the show is just it makes you feel safe in a way because you're like, oh, we'll be fine. She's got it. And she does. She's so extraordinary in the show, and it's because the show is sort of it's funny, but it's very dark, and like she just sort of moves between all those things so effortlessly with such kind of humanity and kind of honesty. She's such a sort of a truthful kind of relatable actor, but as this character, like she brings such humanity to it. So that was great. But yeah, we got to hang out a bit in the scenes that we had together, and when we were on set together, but not doing scenes together. And she's just a joy to be around, and kind of the glue that holds everything together. You want that as your, the lead person in your show, someone who's just a kind, wonderful person who's, generous and super talented. so,
Sure.
so we lucked out.
Sure. The finale's coming up.
It is.
What can you tease without spoiling anything, if
I think one of the things that I love about this show is it's kind of like I feel like the sort of catchphrase of this show should be, expect the unexpected. And that continues right through to the end, including the finale. But I think, all along the way, it's very, suspenseful, and you're like, don't open that door, don't go down there, and she like inevitably she does, and it like things kind of ramp up. There's still some of that in the finale, but there's some really satisfying things where some things kind of come together, and it's not all completely well. I don't want to give too much away, but it's satisfying, but it's still surprising and unexpected. There's some really my character, may or may not appear again in the finale, but there's definitely some good surprises in store. So yeah, that's. I mean, I wish I could say more, but I don't want to spoil
sure, absolutely. Good.
it.
All right, last question. You're a Massachusetts resident, at least part-time, right?
Yeah.
What attracts you to the state?
Oh my God, a lot. I lived in New York City for many years, and I just think Massachusetts is. I love New York, but I think Massachusetts is such a beautiful state. I love the nature here. I live nestled in like hundreds of acres. It's not my hundreds of acres, but like hundreds of acres of national park, and I just think it's an incredibly beautiful state. I really like the people here. I mean, if we're talking about the way the state is managed, I have great admiration for it. There's great healthcare, there's great social services when you need them. I mean, it's a wonderful place to live from all from the sort of perspective of all those aspects as well. But personally, I was just struck by how beautiful it is, and I find it very, very peaceful, particularly. I live on Cape Cod, which in the summer gets very busy, and which is also beautiful, but the rest of the year is so peaceful, and so I just find it endlessly beautiful. Even when the days are very, very short, the sunsets in the winter are amazing. The light up here is so magical. It's very, unique, I think. And there's great communities here where I live, and from what I understand in other parts of Massachusetts. So I'm sold. This is my home.
That's great. All right, Murray Bartlett, thank you so much. We look forward to the finale.
Yeah, good. Hope you enjoy it.